This is Mr. Oscar, and today we will settle something that gets debated endlessly online, with almost no psychological accuracy whatsoever. Are millennials smarter than Gen Z? The short answer is no, and I want to spend the next few minutes explaining why that question, as commonly asked, is the wrong question entirely, and what the right question reveals about both generations that is far more interesting, far more useful, and far more honest than a simple ranking. Because here is what I have come to understand after years of working with, observing, and studying people across both of these generations. The differences are real, measurable, documented in serious research by serious people. But they have nothing to do with intelligence. They have everything to do with what each environment built and what it failed to build in the brains of the people who grew up inside it. I want to tell you about two people I worked with closely about 2 years ago. One was a millennial woman in her late 30s, sharp, methodical, exceptionally good at sustained analytical thinking, could sit inside a complex, ambiguous problem for hours without reaching for a resolution prematurely, had a relationship with difficulty that looked almost comfortable from the outside. The other was a General Z man in his mid-20s, conceptually brilliant, faster pattern recognition than almost anyone I had encountered, could synthesize information from multiple sources simultaneously in a way that genuinely impressed me, but struggled, visibly, honestly struggled, to sustain deep engagement with a single problem past the first 30 minutes, without the pull of distraction becoming almost physical, same level of raw intelligence. I am certain of that. Measurably different cognitive experiences of sustained, unrewarded, ambiguous thinking. And when I went looking for the research that explained what I was observing, the answer had nothing to do with one generation being smarter than the other. James Flynn, the psychologist at the University of Otago, whose decades of research documented what became known as the Flynn Effect, found that IQ scores have been rising consistently across every generation for over a century. General Z scores at least as high on standardized measures of intelligence as any generation before them, possibly higher. So the intelligence is there, equal, perhaps greater in raw measure. What differs is not the intelligence, it is the cognitive architecture built around it. Walter Mischel's research on delayed gratification showed that the capacity to tolerate waiting for a larger, later reward is one of the most powerful predictors of real-world execution ever documented. It is not innate. It is built through repeated developmental experience of having to wait. Millennials had that experience enforced by circumstance. No streaming, no instant delivery, no on-demand anything. Gen Z inherited a world of frictionless immediacy. And the neurological tolerance for delayed reward that Mischel's research identifies as critical for execution simply had fewer opportunities to develop. Cal Newport's research on deep-focused attention showed that this capacity, like a muscle, develops through use and atrophies through disuse. Millennials built their attentional habits before the smartphone fragmented the attention landscape permanently. The average attention span before interruption, documented by Dr. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine, dropped from around 2.5 minutes in 2004 to approximately 47 seconds in recent years. That is not a Gen Z character flaw. That is a generation whose attentional architecture was formed inside an environment of continuous interruption. Dr. Anna Lemke at Stanford, whose research on dopamine I have referenced before on this channel, found that repeated exposure to high-stimulation digital environments raises the brain's stimulation threshold, meaning ordinary low-stimulation activity, the slow, unglamorous work of building something real, begins to feel neurologically flat. Not because the person doesn't care, because the brain's reward sensitivity has been recalibrated by years of high-frequency dopamine hits. And Jonathan Haidt at New York University, whose research on adolescent development and smartphone exposure is among the most important work being done in psychology right now, found measurable changes in reward processing, attention regulation, and tolerance for sustained effort in the generation that grew up with smartphones during their formative years. None of this is intelligence. All of it is environment. But here is what I want General Z to hear directly, because this conversation is incomplete without it. The same environment that created those specific cognitive challenges also built genuine strengths that the research is beginning to document with equal clarity. Faster information processing, greater comfort with ambiguity and complexity at a conceptual level, broader pattern recognition across multiple information streams simultaneously, higher social awareness and sensitivity to systemic dynamics, greater openness to psychological self-examination, which is precisely why this channel exists and why it resonates with younger audiences in ways that would have been impossible a generation ago. These are not consolation prizes. They are real cognitive advantages built by a real environment, different from the advantages millennials built, not lesser. The honest picture, the one the research actually paints, is of two generations with comparable raw intelligence, shaped by profoundly different developmental environments into different cognitive profiles, each with genuine strengths, each with genuine gaps, neither superior, both navigating the consequences of circumstances they did not choose. So here is the only practical question that matters. If you are General Z, or if you work with, lead, or parent someone who is, the cognitive gaps the research identifies are not permanent fixtures of an unchangeable brain. The neuroscience of neuroplasticity, documented extensively by Dr. Michael Merzenich at UC San Francisco, shows that the brain rewires in response to new experience at any age. The delayed gratification muscle can be rebuilt through deliberate practice. The deep attention capacity can be recovered through consistent, structured deep work. The dopamine sensitivity can be recalibrated through what Anna Lemke calls a dopamine fast, a structured period of reduced high-stimulation input that allows the baseline to reset. None of this requires becoming a different person. It requires building deliberate practices that recreate, intentionally and consciously, the developmental experiences that the environment failed to provide automatically. The millennials who built those cognitive capacities did not build them through superior character. They built them because their environment left them no alternative. You have the alternative, which means you have to choose it deliberately. That is harder. It is also more powerful. Because a cognitive capacity you built consciously, against the pull of an environment designed to prevent it, is stronger and more durable than one that was simply handed to you by circumstance. I want to close with this. The question of which generation is smarter is the wrong question. It produces the wrong conversation, the wrong conclusions, and the wrong responses in the people who most need useful information. The right question is, what did your developmental environment build in you? What did it fail to build? And what are you going to do about the gap? That question has a practical answer, a buildable answer, an answer that does not depend on when you were born, but on what you choose to do from today forward. The brain you have is not the ceiling, it is the starting point. I'm Mr. Oscar. This is Execution Psychology, and I will see you in the next one.